Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of The Fad Show. On tonight's episode, I bought my favorite car in the entire world again. I mean, this is not the same car that I had before, but this is my fourth Mark IV TDI. If you've been following this channel for a long time, you'll know that I used to have a silver Mark IV TDI wagon. Unfortunately, this one has the wrong engine, but when I saw this come up on Facebook Marketplace, I just absolutely had to have it. I've deeply regretted selling my original Mark IV wagon, and I've pretty much constantly been looking for like a good condition Mark IV wagon to come up. But as you probably know, if you're watching this video, they're super hard to come by. I mean, maybe once every like 6 months or something, one will come up, and they're usually crazy expensive, which I was willing to pay the money for the right one. This one came up and looked pretty good, and it was actually a really good price. Unfortunately, it's an 04 that has the VW engine, which I guess we'll get into the problems that has a little bit later in this video. But everything else around it seemed good enough to make me kind of live with that. And then the fact that the price was what I thought was pretty good for a Mark IV wagon that's in decent shape, despite having the wrong engine. But anyways, on this episode, we're gonna give the car a once over, try and figure out what's wrong with it. And you might have noticed that the valve cover is off the car, because the first thing I wanted to do when I got it was inspect the camshaft, because these VW engines are known for eating camshafts. So the first thing I wanted to do for some peace of mind was look at that and then make sure the timing belt was all right, because I didn't have any history on that being changed. I guess I'll talk about that when we get there. I guess I'll just let the cat out of the bag right now. The camshaft is absolutely toast on this car, which for the price and the miles I kind of expected and was at peace with when I bought it. I kind of just like planned that I would always just replace it anyways. But I thought I was going to be able to drive it a little bit before doing it, but no, I can't drive this car with how it looks right now. But I guess we'll get to that. And since I already brought it up, I guess I'll start the tour of the car with the engine. Unfortunately, that's the worst part of this car, because the rest of it is actually pretty good. So I'm going to try not to let this drown out the rest of it. But with that, that's what I'm going to show you first. All right, so here we are under the hood. So the 04 and 05 Mark IVs in the US got the BEW 1.9 liter TDI. It's a PD engine, or pump dulce, which I'm not going to lie to you and tell you I know what that means in German. I have no clue. I do speak a little bit of German, but I guess I missed that one in my studies. But I would call it a unit injector engine for my time studying diesel engines, because it has the actual injectors that are driven off of the camshaft. It still has electronic control as far as the injector duration, just not the actual, or not the pumping force, I guess is how I'll describe it. But anyways, these engines are known for producing camshaft wear over time. Unlike the ALH, they moved to a 5W30 oil, and yeah, I'm not sure if it was a material issue or the lighter oil or kind of the higher stresses on it with the unit injectors, but for whatever reason they do produce wear. It's gonna be really hard to show it on video, but here's a cam lobe that is kind of horizontal here, and basically the way you can do it is if you look at the base of the cam, again, I'm not sure what you're gonna be able to see on video, there's kind of like a chamfered edge here, but basically that's completely gone at the end because it's worn down. So that's kind of the easiest way you can tell. You can run your finger over the end of the lobe, and it kind of just feels like a dull, like kitchen knife. Or I play hockey, so honestly, this feels like a skate blade, whereas kind of at the base, it has like that smooth chamfered edge to it. So supposedly when you get to this point, it's pretty much done for. Also, I can just feel it, and it's not round anymore. It has a flat spot at the end. You can kind of see this one has the lobe up, and I don't know. I mean, to me, it looks like some of the material might be worn off, but it's kind of hard to tell. Again, there's a flat spot there. Other thing you can do is if the wear gets really bad, it'll actually punch through a lifter. So it's kind of hard to see the lifters from the front of the engine, but you can use an inspection mirror to look at the lifters. It's a lot easier to see the ones that the valves are closed on. You can bump the starter. You can unplug the injectors and bump the starter if you want to look at it all the way around. I didn't do that. I can tell from what I can see that it's done and needs a camshaft, so there's no point in moving it around. I guess on one positive note, the timing belt, which is another thing that I wanted to inspect, is actually okay. It's actually pretty easy to look at the camshaft on these because all you have to do is remove the valve cover, which is sitting over there. My car has an EGR delete. Supposedly it's a little bit more involved if you still have the EGR system there, but really it's just 11 bolts. And take off the intake tube, take off this timing belt cover, and it comes right off. Also, this car has a massive oil leak from the backside of the engine, which I thought was going to be a turbo oil drain line or supply line, but it turns out whoever probably did the last timing belt on this engine, I'm going to go ahead and say, they didn't tighten up this bolt. It's really hard to get to. It was just completely loose in there. And you can see this is kind of where the oil is leaking. So I think I found my oil leak. Unfortunately, there's a lot bigger problems than an oil leak. So that is the engine situation, I guess I'll say. I mean, overall, everything else looks pretty good in here. I can tell the car has a brand new starter. It's kind of rare for Mark IVs to still have the battery cover. None of the plastic is too dry rotted. I guess it does need all new fuel lines, but that's pretty much par for the course for any Mark IV of this age. It's got actual VW coolant in it, which is always good to see. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what else to talk about under the engine. Obviously, somebody had a boost gauge here before, so I'll probably just cut that off eventually. So that covers the engine. I guess I'll go ahead and raise the car up a little bit and we can get under it and talk about some of the other stuff. All right, so I guess we'll just go ahead and check everything else over. So I'll go ahead and check for wheel bearing and tie rod play, which I already did this off camera and it actually feels really tight. And one super nice thing to see, which is actually one of the things that sold me on this car, is that someone took the time to put Bilstein B6s on it. So those are pretty expensive shocks. I think it's about, I don't know, don't catch me lying, $600 to $800 for a set of them for all four corners. So if someone is spending that much on suspension, kind of makes me think they're looking after it. Unfortunately, it has Indonesian tires on it, so I'll need to fix that once the engine's sorted out. BBS Montreal style wheels, which are kind of cool. Kind of cool that BBS made like a 16-inch wheel, and supposedly they're pretty strong and light, so I'm definitely going to keep those. I love long beaches on Mark IVs, but I'll keep this since they're pretty special. As far as brake pad wear, the front is awesome. Awesome. I said the front has plenty of life left. The rear is completely gone. I'm not going to sure if you can see it. Also, you can see the rotor is completely rusted, and there's a huge lip here. And honestly, besides the engine, everything on this car is really good. One problem I did notice is the rear bump stops are dry rotted, so maybe those shocks have been on there for a while, or they didn't replace the bump stops, but I'll need to fix that eventually. Again, first order of business on this car is going to be getting the engine sorted. And as far as the aesthetics go, the body is actually really good. The car came from Tennessee, so there's no rust. The paint is really good. There's no dents, no scratches. All the blue Mark IVs start to get clear coat fade, so I'm not sure if you can see that in the trunk. So the hood and the roof are definitely going to have to get resprayed. But I do love the blue color despite that. Obviously the front bumper, again, has clear coat fade on it. So maybe someone rattle canned it, I don't know. And it's cool to see that it has Euro headlights, but obviously they need to have the lenses at least replaced. I couldn't find anywhere online that still sells the glass headlight lenses for Mark IV, so I might just buy a whole new set then. But anywho, I guess we'll crawl under now and check everything out underneath. So here you can see the boxes for for this car, and you can see the absolutely massive oil leak coming from the backside of the engine, which I'm pretty confident was that valve cover, because that back. So at this point, the camera just decided to randomly turn off, and I lost all the footage under the car, but I'll tell you what I found. There wasn't much to see. The massive oil leak that I already talked about at the rear of the engine was definitely prevalent. The CV boots are all in good condition. It looked like someone had replaced the sway bar end links at one point, since they were solid metal ones, not the factory plastic ones. Someone put TT bushings on it, so bushings were all in really good shape. Obviously, I pointed out the Bills Team B4 or B6s before. I also found out that it had Eibach lowering springs to go with those. And that was pretty much it. It was a stock exhaust, which is kind of weird to see on a TDI. Usually people straight pipe them for the turbo sounds. But zero rust. Jacking points, the passenger side front one had been crushed in before, which is pretty much par for the course for every Mark IV I've had. I'm not really sure how that happens, but it seems like maybe if you jack one corner at a time with like a scissor jack or something, it tends to fold that mount in. So overall, pretty good, clean bill of health underneath. Not really anything that needs addressed immediately down there. All right, so now looking on the interior, which this is one of the other things that sold me on the car, other than the fact that it had the B6s and a pretty straight, clean body. This has the Wolfsburg Jetta like square bolster seats. So these are super rare in gray, and they're heated, which is pretty cool. So I definitely know that enthusiasts own this car at one point because of these seats, which are super rare. You can see they already put the Audi TT pedal covers on. It has a Euro headlight leveling switch and the Euro fog light switch. Also, I'm not sure, I guess I would have to get the key to turn it on, which I do have. It has the Euro cluster with the LCD screen that we did not get here in the States. And also kind of the thing that threw me off crazily on this car when I first got it is the brake indicator is a different symbol. That's the parking brake indicator, which is a different symbol than the US cars. So that's just kind of weird. It threw me off at first, but definitely a Euro cluster in there. There's really not much else to see. Unfortunately, the glove box is broken like every Mark IV. The sunroof actually works, which is kind of surprising. Unfortunately, whoever put these Wolfsburg seats in here, they are a sedan seat, so they made the backrest work, but the bottoms you can see are just kind of loosely stuffed in here. So I wouldn't let anyone ride back here. I don't think that's too safe. Every Mark IV, the headliner sagging. I say every Mark IV. Obviously, there's ones that people have looked after and is good. Actually has a cargo cover, which I'm pretty sure my last one didn't. Yeah, I don't know. It's a Mark IV wagon. Look, I showed you the big points of it. And then again, the body is just actually surprisingly straight for the age and miles. Unfortunately, someone crushed that drag point at some point. I guess one more thing I saw that I thought was kind of cool that I didn't even know was an option on Mark IVs. So this car has the like home link. Not sure if it works. Obviously the buttons are cracked, but it's kind of cool to see on one of these cars because I've just always thought of them as being very simple or whatever. Yeah, so that's it. Overall, the body and the mechanics are really good. Unfortunately, this thing is letting it down just a little bit. So that's the introduction to my newest Mark IV. We went over the car, found some things that are wrong with it. As far as the actual rest of the car goes, besides the engine, it's not bad. It looks like we need rear bump stops, rear brakes, and then outer tie rod ends. for the front, and it would be 100% ready to drive. Unfortunately, this is going to cost a lot of money and take a lot of time. I say it's going to cost a lot of money. I mean, really, it's not, part-wise, it's not terrible. Like the camshafts, for people I've seen them as cheap as like $200, but for like a forged, like nice camshaft, it's about $500. And then like $300 for the timing belt kit, which you might as well do at the same time while you have the camshaft out. So $800, I don't know. I guess that's not terrible, but I was kind of hoping that I could at least get like 20,000 miles out of it, get it to 200 before I had to deal with this. I kind of knew it was always going to be a problem. And then I guess it also needs the new front glove box. Yeah, so I guess once again, I probably could have maybe inspected the car a little bit better. I'm not sure how you could ever really know that if you don't have a check engine, if you don't have any codes for it and you can't really hear it rattling or clattering too much. Like it probably is a little bit louder than it should be, but I haven't had a diesel for like 2 years, so I guess I kind of forgot what they sound like. Yeah, so I guess I'm just rambling on now. The moral of the story is I'm kind of bummed, but at the end of the day, I knew it was a risk. I knew it was going to need to be done eventually, and I absolutely love these cars. I really can't describe why I love these cars because objectively they're terrible. Like the plastic and everything on the interior just falls apart. But subjectively, they're just awesome to drive. Like, I don't know. I kind of like this size too, where it's like a wagon, but it kind of drives like a hot hatch, mechanical power steering. Once you have like the TT suspension on here, it actually like handles really good, which this does have. I guess I didn't point that out at the time, but I did notice it had the TT bushings in here. Then obviously the B6s and iBox springs, so it definitely drives good. I'm not going to drive it anymore though, now that I know what the status of that is. So I hope you guys like this video. I wanted to get something out this week. I think this car though is going to be on the back burner for a while I finish the Land Cruiser. Obviously this is going to take some time and effort to do, and right now I don't really have that. So anyways, I hope you guys like this video. As always, please like and subscribe, and stay tuned for next time. Thank you guys. Bye.